I'm Thinking of Ending Things is written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, and it's a film that's on Netflix right now. So obviously, I had huge expectations going into this film, and honestly, that's rightfully so, because I've actually really liked or loved everything that Charlie Kaufman has done up until this point. Everything that he's either written or both wrote and directed, I just think is quite brilliant. Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation, Synecdoche, New York, Anomalisa. I mean, everything that I've seen from him, I think is brilliant writing and just great filmmaking in general. And you know, some people would say that being a film critic and being a film reviewer is an easy job. And you know, to their credit, in a way it is, because I'm essentially just talking about something that I love. So in a way they are right, but sometimes it can be kind of tough, especially if you commit yourself to honesty, because that means that eventually you're gonna go against the grain and give out a hot take every now and then, and you're gonna upset some people for really not liking a film that a lot of people really enjoy, and that's not really fun for me, to be honest. That's honestly one of the worst things and something that I don't look forward to at all. So far, all of Letterboxd loves this film. They're giving it high praise. All of my personal friends actually really love this film. So again, like, I haven't really met anybody or talked to anybody or even seen anybody on the internet really not take to this film very much. And with all that being said, now that I've actually seen the film, I was really disappointed and let down by this film in a lot of different ways. And it's not because I went into the film with high expectations, because I essentially went into every Kaufman film with really high expectations, and it didn't skew my perception of the film at all. But this film does have some positives. So before I start giving my honest critiques of this film, let me start with a few positives that I do have with this film. First and foremost, there is this 30-minute stretch or so, somewhere in the middle of the film, that takes place in the parents' house that I just thought was really well directed, well written, and just had great execution overall. It's some of the most awkward shit I've seen in a while, but it was really well executed. It just has this incredibly surreal time warp, multiverse type feel and atmosphere to it. It's effective because of the use of lighting, the camera movement, of the pacing, and like the lapses of time that's presented. But to be fair, you could argue that the entire film essentially has that type of feel to it, but I just felt it a lot more while they were at the parents' house, and I just thought it was a lot more effective there. And there was hardly any voiceover during that entire segment, which I personally considered a positive for the film. And I mean, I'll talk more about the voiceover when I start talking about the negatives, but beyond that, like, I also felt genuine emotion and genuine tension between characters and during certain situations, which ultimately brings me to my next positive, which is that the acting in this film was actually pretty damn good overall. And obviously, I think the standouts here are from the older actors, from David Thewlis and Toni Collette, especially from Toni Collette, because she really has to act out these incredibly intense, sporadic, and outrageous type of emotions that can be incredibly difficult for an actor to portray convincingly. And the way that she goes about conveying a lot of the unspoken tension between her and the son, I thought was really incredible acting, and is, again, portrayed in a more subtle type of way. But honestly, I think is the best performance in the film by far. And you know, I really appreciate and admire, really artful, confusing, and ambiguous type of filmmaking that can come off a bit abstract. You know, I have a special place in my heart and a small type of bias for those kind of films that contain those kind of approaches. So I'm going to give the film, automatic credit there. Because, the third act does contain something that is certainly stylistic. And, I have to give some sort of points and some sort of admiration, for Kaufman to be able to go out there and make something that is, that artistically ambitious. So I'll give it credit in terms of its artistic integrity. But honestly, beyond all that, I really didn't find much enjoyment in this film at all. And this film essentially felt like it wasn't even written by Kaufman, and it wasn't even directed by Kaufman. To me, like, it felt like it was written and directed by somebody who was trying to mimic Kaufman. Therefore, it kind of resulted in a film that felt like a third-rate Diet Kaufman film. And I know that's really harsh to say, and I know that a lot of the Kaufman diehards have probably already hit that dislike button, but you gotta understand, like, I'm a diehard Kaufman fan. Like, I have loved everything that he's made up until this point, and I think I still think he's a brilliant screenwriter, and definitely one of the best screenwriters we have today. And for those who actually follow this channel, you guys know that I'm pretty nice when it comes to film. Like, I'm actually, not that stubborn and, not that harsh of a critic overall. But I have to be honest here, and I really think that the writing of this film was really underwhelming, and that's quite shocking to me because, again, I consider Kaufman to be one of the better screenwriters that we have today. But to me, almost every aspect of the writing was quite underwhelming. And, I mean, it's everything from the main character, the voiceover narration, the execution of its themes, and just the narrative. So for starters, one thing that this film doesn't have, that most Kaufman films do have that I think is great, is this really gripping concept that revolves around the narrative, that if all else fails, you'll still be able to be engaged by that crucial gripping element of the story. Being John Malkovich has that really cool secret door concept to where if anybody goes in the door, you can start perceiving reality through John Malkovich. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind has that memory erasing concept that really keeps you engaged throughout the film. Both Synecdoche, New York and Adaptation are incredible pieces of meta filmmaking that, again, like, can help maintain intrigue while you're watching it, and is also just impressive filmmaking and writing overall. But I'm Thinking of Ending Things doesn't have anything like that, in my opinion. And it wouldn't really need to have anything like that if it was at least made up for having excellent characters. But to me, this film doesn't really have that either. I personally found the main character to this film to be really, really annoying and at times really unbearable. And it's just mainly because she just comes off as this, like, overly pretentious, edgelord, know-it-all college student, where we also have to hear the voiceover of her inner thoughts throughout the film. And, I totally get why the film decided to do that, because the film, it really wants the audience to be able to dive into her mind and understand her thought process and her personality. But I found her inner thoughts to be really off-putting and unlikable because it was just really surface level, as if, like, it was just something that a spoiled teenager would just be spewing out. And at first, I was excusing it for quite some time because I was like, okay, I was assuming that eventually the film would have, like, some sort of character growth or some sort of thematic purpose throughout the film that would have some sort of payoff. But it doesn't. Like, that's just her character, and, I guess the film just expects you to like her character in a way, and apparently a lot of other people do, because I can see a lot of people looking at her character and being like, oh, I can totally relate to that. That sounds like something I would say. That's so me. But for me, it was just really, really tough to get through most of the time. But another thing that was quite frustrating about, like, the concept of the voice-over thoughts thing was that there's a handful of times where the voice-over thoughts it was literally just there to give unnecessary exposition of, character situations, reinforce notions of the story, and just how characters feel about certain things. It would just reinforce that, even though it was something that was clearly already conveyed to the audience just through visual means or the performances already. And another thing that was quite underwhelming about her character is that you don't really get any real depth or insightful background for her character. And I understand that you don't always need that, but I felt like in this film you kind of do, because she doesn't really grow or mature or learn anything by the end of the film. And another thing about her character, and I guess story in general, is that, and I guess this is kind of nitpicky, but it's something that kind of bothered me when I was watching it, is that, like, she never acknowledges any of the drastic time lapses that are obviously occurring around her. And, I'm sure that it was an intentional stylistic choice to do that, to maybe make it feel a bit more surreal. But for me, the problem was that, one, it just didn't feel realistic, and two, it just didn't match her character, because the film had already established that she is this more observing, interpretive type of person. Her boyfriend character really wasn't all that interesting either. I mean, at least we got some sort of insight into his more internal issues and background family issues that, you know, kind of helped me get a little bit more engaged and helped me slightly latch on to his character. But it just wasn't enough. Honestly, I think the most interesting characters in this film are the parents, played by Toni Collette and David Thewlis, but we spend literally less than a third of the film's runtime with them, so that's like another huge bummer. We actually spend a lot of time in this film with the main character and her boyfriend as they're just driving in a car. Like, we spend so much time with them driving in a car, and a lot of that time is just spent with, you know, hearing their conversations and debates that are usually like philosophical or academic or something like that. And then it's also her reactionary inner thoughts to what he is saying. And to me, the film just spent way too much time with these two characters sitting in a car together. And, you know, I would have been fine with that again if I found the dialogues and conversations between them compelling or insightful or thought-provoking in some kind of way. But it really wasn't for me, because the vast majority of it just was really surface level, annoying, and just boring. I'm pretty sure we spend much more time overall in the film's runtime with them talking to each other in the car about things that I did not find that insightful at all than the time that we spend at the parents' house. And that was something that, again, really bummed me out, because the shit that was going down at the parents' house felt, again, like more like a genuine Kaufman film that at the very least would match the same level of quality that I was getting from Kaufman's previous films. I'm sorry, but for me, this film was like a lighter, less inventive version of Kaufman films that we've already seen. And I really hate to say this, because again, I really, really love Kaufman as a screenwriter overall. But I'm getting a bit worried that his films might be coming off a bit too one note, and he's just tackling a lot of the same kind of existential shit that he's already tackled in his previous films. Because I'm convinced that anything that you got out of this film, you could have gotten out of a film like Synecdoche, New York, and much more, because that's a film that I think is just far more superior in a lot of different ways. I mean, sure, yeah, there are some positives with this film, like the ones that I established at the beginning of this review, but for me, this film was honestly really tough to get through, and I found it really underwhelming and really disappointing, and obviously a bit too long. And I just thought this film was going to be a whole lot better. I thought it could have been a whole lot better, despite that it does have somewhat of an artful approach. So I'm going to give I'm Thinking of Ending Things a 5 out of 10. It's really painful for me to say that. It really is. Again, I love Charlie Kaufman. I think he is a brilliant screenwriter and a damn good filmmaker. His film just didn't do it for me. The writing was really off for me, and I just found a lot of issues with it, and I couldn't really get that invested or immersed into this film. And I know that I'm hugely going against the grain on this, because I've had people on Letterboxd tell me that this is Kaufman's Mulholland Drive, and this is like Kaufman's best film, and this is a masterpiece. And I'm just like, how? But hey, I'm not trying to invalidate your opinion. If you truly, truly enjoy this film and you think it's a masterpiece, all the power to you. You know, that's your opinion, and we all have them. And I would prefer people to have good film-going experiences and not have bad ones like me. And hey, if you somehow made it this far into the video without thumbing it down and getting the fuck out, I highly appreciate your attention. And if you actually really enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.